Hello, everybody, and welcome to Onset 3. So today's a really exciting day for us here as we're unveiling Carbonmark, which is the universal carbon marketplace, building on KlimaDAO's existing toolset to make it easier and faster than ever to buy, sell, or retire digital carbon. So we'll just start off with a little housekeeping. As I say, run you through the agenda as we're waiting for people to filter in. We've got a good 400 or so people registered today, seeing the attendee numbers tick up. And today we have Drew Bonhomme and myself from KlimaDAO presenting the journey so far and what led us to release Carbonmark. We'll share perspectives also from partnerships with Circle and Vlinder. And finally, Liam, our head of solutions, will take you through Carbonmark and show you what you can do today on carbonmark.com. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A, so leave your questions as we go, and we'll try to pick them up at the end. With that, I think we can kick off. So to start with, just wanted to lead you on the journey a little bit from previous onsets and why we came up with Carbonmark and we're releasing it today to this wider audience. So there are a number of challenges facing the VCM, like the voluntary carbon market today, and the market is typified by opaque, over-the-counter trading, a lack of transparency for demand-side participants, and often fragmented liquidity as well. So as we've outlined in our previous two webinars, we believe that digital carbon and the infrastructure we've developed can really help resolve these constraints. And I'm going to pass over to Drew to talk you through kind of how this has led us to Carbonmark.
Super. Thanks, Vishal. So I'm excited to now dive into Carbonmark and how it's being built to address some of those challenges that Vishal just cited there. So the big picture is that we're leveraging KlimaDAO's infrastructure to really provide an instant settlement layer for digital carbon assets while providing the full transparency and traceability that blockchain technology affords. You can already access the over 20 million tons of digitized carbon assets on the Polygon blockchain through our public interface today. And additionally, we're going to be open sourcing Carbonmark's code base to create a very rich ecosystem of innovation from builders that are integrating their own solutions atop of Carbonmark itself. So we've developed a number of disparate products thus far, and we're working to integrate them seamlessly into Carbonmark. So for example, the retirement aggregator handles key functionality, such as the routing of assets between different trading pools on the Polygon network, as well as the retirement itself. Another example is our usage of KlimaDAO and the insights it provides on digital carbon market dynamics, including asset prices and project availability. And as it will be integrated into the analytics dashboard of Carbonmark, this will provide merchants and traders with valuable market insights and is part of our overall vision of creating a seamless experience for interfacing with the DCM. The key to this experience is being able to interface with the blockchain itself. And so to that end, we're really excited to share our partnership with Circle. Circle is an institutional grade asset custody solution. DeFi for too long has had challenges with user interfacing. We're on a mission to change that with our release of Carbonmark and this partnership. So via this custody solution, users will be able to transact digital carbon assets and connect to our platform in an experience that'll be very familiar to traditional banking and online platforms such as Stripe, if you're familiar with them. Importantly, Circle is a partner with a tremendous track record in the blockchain space. They provide enterprise-grade security. They've had over $33 billion of USDC in circulation, and they facilitated over 10 trillion in secure USDC transactions. And they also support over 190 countries around the world. So companies will be able to set up user profiles, special trading permissions, and user allowances, and easily on-ramp and off-ramp fiat currency with what is effectively a digital bank, all while leveraging enterprise-grade security. So through the Circle business account, DCM participants will be able to source, trade, and list digital carbon assets easily and securely. And easier interfacing to perform these actions is, of course, crucial for connecting demand and supply side participants. And so while Carbonmark abstracts away much of the underlying DeFi infrastructure that KlimaDAO has developed, we're still going to allow market participants to take advantage of many of those demand aggregation potentials from the DeFi technology stack itself. So merchants listing credits on Carbonmark will have the opportunity for their credits to be included into all those applications that are building on KlimaDAO's infrastructure, such as the automated offsetting SAP integration that Provide Services has developed. And we showcased that in our last webinar, which you can see on our YouTube channel. So as a quick summary for those that couldn't make it to that webinar, Provide Services SAP integration provides automated carbon accounting and offsetting functionality where SAP users can essentially set criteria for offset purchasing and then prove using on-chain data that their business activities have been offset in near real time. And our goal is to create the easiest and most productive experience for carbon project developers and traders to connect with demand-side participants. So in short, by leveraging KlimaDAO's technology stack and the partnerships we have with players like Circle, we're moving forward with integrating the digital carbon market and making it easier than ever to gain market insights, source credits, trade, and deliver projects to the market. So we're really happy to have a carbon project developer here with us who has actually listed credits on Carbonmark. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sergey from Vlinder to discuss their work. Sergey, the floor is yours.
So, hello everyone. It's a really honor to be here in this forum, and I think KlimaDAO has a noble mission. Well, which I was actually always excited about the sparks of collective intelligence and engineering of coordination mechanisms, which can make magic. And for me, that manifests the butterfly effect, like of a small action, small piece of code, which can make huge impact to the world. Actually, my journey in ReFi started quite before the word ReFi was invented and the word Web3. So we, in 2016, we started a company which actually was tokenizing various real-world assets, and one of the products we did was tokenizing the participation in the mangrove restoration project in Myanmar in 2017, which was called TreeCoin, and it helped raise, I think, about $1 million, which was spent on restoring the mangrove forests in Myanmar and also for the Vera certification process. And actually, this really was a very crucial moment for the project. They were barely surviving, and this money helped them basically to not just survive, but then scale up. And this is now a very big developer, one of the largest in the world. So proud to be part of it. And this TreeCoin was for me like a kind of an aha moment that, yeah, you can, create a community, you can fundraise, crowdfund, capital for like such a kind of difficult assets such as carbon projects, which has risks. And so this was like a big moment that you can do this. You can like make them develop and scale up. And also this was a moment where I learned about mangroves and how beautiful they are. And since then we created a company later to focus on blue carbon and to develop actually mangrove restoration projects. So now Vlinder is involved in 4 Vera certified mangrove projects, which in total will sequester over 3 million tons of carbon over the next 20-30 years. And so we are the developers of projects, but we also try to make the participation in those projects kind of possible for people, like developing some kind of a framework for carbon tokenization. So if you go to the next slide, this will show kind of our flagship project, which we now develop in Kenya. In the south of Kenya, near the Tanzania border, there is a Kwale County, where we restore degraded areas and plant mangroves. This is like roughly we expected to remove around 1 million tons of CO2, like our little contribution to the kind of reversal of the climate change. And this project is going to be certified with Vera VCS and CCB standards, as well as SDVista, which verifies the achievement of the SDG goals. And unfortunately, this project is only starting now, so only get validation last month, and the spot carbon is not yet available to be present. But we try to still make the forward carbon credits also investable. If you go to the next slide, we try to build some legal and technical framework that allows projects like Vlinder Carbon, Vlinder Kenya Carbon project to get to issue the forward carbon credits. So each such forward carbon token is a representation of the future environmental benefit, which will be delivered in certain year, say 2024, 2025. And once the spot carbon is verified and is issued on Vera, there will be hopefully a two-way bridge, which will allow to deliver the spot carbon into the forward carbon token, so that the holders of the forwards can swap it to the spot and be able to retire and sell it on various apps. Right now we have a pilot together with Senken and together with Solid World, how we can offer and trade the forwards, maybe soon, hopefully also on Carbonmark at some point. But today we present, I think, if you go to the next slide, the spot carbon ton, which is generated by the very first Treecoin sponsored project, which is later was organized as a DAO. It's called the Mangrove DAO, which is now holding some of the spot carbon return from the project as a reward for this initial support, which was done in 2017, and it's the vintage 2020, which was breached by Vlinder and is now owned by the Mangrove DAO. And the amount which will be made available is up to 3,000 tons for this particular vintage. But every year there will be more carbon coming. So we hope to explore both from Vlinder side and from the Mangrove DAO side to explore the Carbonmark as the vehicle to offer and transparently trade carbon at the market price. So over to you, Drew. But thanks again for the invitation and opportunity to be part of this.
Glad to have you here, Sergey. I'm actually going to pass it over now to Liam, because Liam is going to be walking us through Carbonmark itself and the user interface. Go ahead, Liam.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Drew. And I just want to check that everyone can see my screen here. I'm on carbonmark.com. Just let me know, Drew, if you can see this.
Yes. Yep. Looks like screen share is working well.
Fantastic. So before we jump into the app, I guess what I'm really keen to do with the audience here today is really to make this real and show how right now, today, we can go into Carbonmark and actually buy some of Vlinder's mangrove reforestation credits live. And I want to show you exactly how easy that is. And I want to give you a bit of background before we jump into the app around who we've really built Carbonmark for in this first release, and explain some of the features before we dive into the app experience. So at the high level, we're releasing the Universal Carbon Marketplace. So as Drew alluded to earlier, we're building on some of the deeper level infrastructure that we have. So out of the box, Carbonmark is supporting over 2 million verified carbon credits from hundreds of projects. And the infrastructure is, while the application layer and the accessibility features that we're providing are brand new, the infrastructure has been getting a lot of usage over its last almost 2 years of life, with over $4 billion of financial value in carbon being traded today. So in terms of thinking about who Carbonmark is for, I mean, it's really for anybody that's wanting to easily source carbon, people who want to search for projects easily and purchase easily and retire easily. So some of the user groups that we're working with are environmental consultants working with clients that are just looking for a simple solution to source carbon for their clients, or value-added resellers of carbon, to name a few. So, and then probably on the sell side, we're really focusing on project developers to help them digitize their existing carbon into our platform and to easily list their project, as Vlinder has done in just a matter of a few clicks. We're also not neglecting the traders, who we can offer a zero commission trading experience with a zero listing fee. We also provide real-time pricing and instant settlement. So there's a lot of dynamics there that traders, we think traders will enjoy as well. So with that in mind, let's go actually into the experience itself. I'm just going to click Browse Projects here. And you can see here that there's a number of different projects listed here with real-time prices, the vintage in which the credit was issued, and also the category. And if we go up here, we can see that there's a filter box here, so we can apply filters. But we also have a search box here. So into the search box, I can type mangroves. And we can see here that it will find the exact reforestation project that Vlinder has put onto Carbonmark. And when we click onto it here, we see a number of things. The best price is, of all the projects that are listed, the best price available within Carbonmark. We also have information from the registry. So the description of the project and more information about its geography. Also, of course, its methodology. And something that is worth noting for future releases as well, this is going to be the one-stop hub in terms of other telemetry relating to the project. So other GIS information we will aggregate here from a variety of sources to provide the best, most transparent picture of the project possible. Then if we scroll down, there's a few more details here. We can see the stats as it pertains to Carbonmark. So we can see the total retirements that has moved through Carbonmark. We can also see the supply of credits within Carbonmark as well. We can also see the listing information here. So the best price for listing, the quantity available from this listing. And we also see the activity, the buy and sell activity around this project. So we've also spoken about how we're abstracting away a lot of the more technical infrastructure that underpins this marketplace. And I think the sign in and connect here is a great example of how we're achieving this. As you can see already in the first release of Carbonmark, we've completely abstracted away some of the more technical aspects of the infrastructure to provide one-click social logins with a number of providers. And we're also going to be having those enterprise identity and connectivity systems put in, as Drew alluded to as well. So let's go through and show what that looks like as with a logged in profile. You can see that there's a buy button here that allows me to do one-click purchasing of this project. But we also have a profile that you'll be able to see here populated, which allows me to input information about myself as a seller, create profiles for branded or individuals, and we also have our own profile IDs here as well. In the profile view, I can even create a new listing. So, and there's some stats here. So if I create a new listing, it can show me that I can create a listing here for the mangrove reforestation project, and I can enter in the amount that I want to list, as well as the price that I want to list that at as well. For users who have a broader custody of different projects, the portfolio section within Carbonmark will show you specifically the types of projects that you currently hold, as well as your listings and balances. So as you can see up here, I have some USDC in the platform, $7, and it also shows you the mangrove reforestation project from Vlinder that I actually own a credit of here, with some extra options here to retire it if I was to be a business or a retailer on behalf of a client, or I can also sell it as well, which will take me through that listing experience. Finally, over here, you can see my activity within this profile. all obviously transparently and sort of trustlessly shown here for auditability and transparency, where you can trace the specific credits to their origin registries as well. So this is the release of Carbonmark, and I've shown you some of the features in Carbonmark today. And with that, I hope that's given you a sort of a broader orientation. And I'm just going to stop sharing my screen here and go back to the presentation. I think next slide there, Peter. So from that orientation, I think I wanted to make a few things sort of real for the audience today, which is that Carbonmark is available today. The site's live. Go over, have a look at carbonmark.com, have a click around, set up a profile, and obviously look at doing some test transactions in there as well, buying and selling, listing and retiring, tracing the verification of these credits. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you as well. So visit carbonmark.com, and if you have any questions, comments, we've got a general purpose email that you can reach us at solutions@carbonmark.com. Is the email. I'll also provide my own details at the end of this presentation. Please reach out to me via my personal email there as well, or via LinkedIn. We'd love to hear about your experience now that the application is live, and we'd love your feedback about how we can enhance the value proposition for you and your clients. So with that, I guess I'll hand it over to Vish.
Thank you so much for unveiling that, Liam, and also to Sergio and Drew for the preamble there. So we're just going to move now into questions. It's a light program today because we really wanted to focus on showing you Carbonmark, and also getting everyone here hands-on and into the website. Like, I encourage you to go on, do a social login, like connect up, try out the website, definitely get in touch with us as you're exploring. But we'll move on to questions now, and keep questions coming if you have anything that you want us to cover that we haven't touched on as we go through. So just to start with, I wanted to start with this question, which is who the main users of Carbonmark are, and what the biggest applications like you see enabled by the launch of this marketplace. I guess maybe Drew and Liam, if you want to take that question, it'd be wonderful.
Absolutely. I think perhaps, Drew, I can talk about the buy side, and maybe you can go into some more details around the supply and sell side. In terms of the users that we have in mind for Carbonmark on the buy side, immediately on the launch of Carbonmark, we see us as a really frictionless vendor for sourcing carbon. So for providers that are really focused on providing customer experiences, whether it be environmental consultants doing emissions analysis or advising on net zero strategies, whether it be value-added retailers who are providing this more broadly to small, medium enterprise, and they just want to take the headache of sourcing and emailing and calling brokers and wrangling opaque pricing, waiting for settlement, et cetera. We're a vendor that can come and provide instant access to the carbon market with fully transparent pricing, with instant settlement and full traceability back to the registries. So that's really where we see ourselves at the launch of Carbonmark. And obviously, as we build more automations into the platform, we're going to be looking at various SaaS providers who are essentially a programmatic channel to end customers as well.
On the project developer side, just to build off of Liam's answer there on the demand side of things, I think Carbonmark's unique because it can help connect directly to demand side participants. I used the term earlier of being a demand aggregator of demand aggregators. And what I mean by that is that, Carbonmark is this piece of infrastructure that can be built on by others. So in our last webinar, we had Provide Services present their solution, which is essentially an SAP module where you can automate offsetting as emissions data comes in from different business processes. That could be supply chain transfers that are occurring, It could be something simple like staff flights, traveling to a conference. Really, the sky's the limit there. But the main thing is that then you could plug in to this digital carbon market infrastructure that we built so that those retirements can just occur automatically, right? Based on certain types of sourcing material that different corporates can set. What you could imagine is, in a few months' time, or over the next couple of years, there are going to be an increasing number of applications that are building atop the infrastructure that we've developed here. And Carbonmark provides a very important step in that journey, because now project developers can list credits at specified per ton pricing. So this is a bit different than a liquidity pool model that we had previously, where you have an automated market maker and supply and demand is then in real time affecting the price of those assets, right? Now the project developers can ensure that there's, let's say, a minimum price that they're selling those credits for, and they in the future will be able to provide additional information about those projects as well. And then finally, the piece I would touch on there is that Carbonmark is modular in a sense. We're looking for other people to build atop this. And one of the things that I spoke with some people last week at the IETA European Climate Summit was on augmenting project information on Carbonmark with, for say, remote sensing data for nature-based projects. So there's a lot of interesting groups that are working on streaming in that information to help things like Solvera ratings and E0 ratings, et cetera. But there's a lot of raw data included as well that's important to demand-side participants. So you can start to integrate that in real time directly into Carbonmark, and then that would be another value add for the project developers themselves.
Thanks so much. I guess on that as well, so Sergey, I wonder if you had any comments on kind of where you see the value of Carbonmark and what brought you to list credits on this marketplace. What are you hoping to gain from this access that it provides?
Well, I'm specifically, I think, excited about the transparency and the low friction sort of this new markets. I mean, if you had experience of trading through brokers or like centralized carbon exchanges, that takes days to submit money to get your stuff field, and like this is it's a bit like of course it's traditional Web 2 versus Web 3 thing, so it's almost instant and frictionless. That's why I think you guys can afford zero fee for this reason, because it's such a neat and technically efficient solution. From the supplier perspective, from the product perspective, I think the biggest maybe breakthrough will be if not just a spot but also forwards can become available on such a marketplace, because this will be a direct way to finance the project and may make much a bigger impact in terms of like what the dollar can do. And of course it comes with the proper risk management and compliance and setup, but for me this is another use case which I would love to explore, this carbon market feature.
Thanks so much. Lots of questions coming in. There are a few around how the retirement functions and also what you actually receive once you retire a credit. As a business, what's the kind of the proof that the offset's been retired? I wonder if Drew or Liam, you had anything you could speak to on that. I think there's something quite interesting perhaps for the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of what our platform provides on retirement is we'll provide you with a retirement certificate. So specifically what's on that certificate that makes it verifiable and traceable is what we call a transaction hash, which is associated with the retirement event. And on that transaction hash, you can see you can see essentially a marker that also exists on the originating registry. So Drew, you might be able to explain this a little in a bit more technical level, but essentially what's happening is that when you bring a carbon credit into our platform via what we call a bridging provider, essentially a serial code is generated on the platform, and then when the credit is retired onto the registry, that same serial is used, and that essentially becomes a proof linking the credit in the registry to a credit in the platform, and then we can expose that at the data layer to show that and allow the user to self-verify the credit's origination to that registry. It's a bit technical, but I don't know if Drew, I butchered that or explained that in a way that was clear and concise. But for whoever asked that question, I hope that made sense.
Yeah, so I think a great place for people interested in diving into some of the technical details of that bridging process and the DCM more generally would be our first webinar, because we do talk about that one-way bridging process and how credits were moved onto the blockchain there. So I'd say if you want to dive in more deeply to that, check out that webinar. We provide a really comprehensive overview there. But yeah, Liam, I think a good summary for folks.
Right. So there are a few more questions rolling in. I think there was one about just how to interact with Carbonmark, like where we're at with the API documentation. Also, can people build their own storefronts, and what can be built with the open source core code? Very interesting set of questions there, and I think this is also one of the things that we're driving towards. I don't know, Drew, if you wanna take that one.
Yeah, we're revamping a lot of the documentation on that. We have a number of different partners that are building atop some of the tooling that we've already developed, including the retirement aggregator, but also Carbonmark in the marketplace now. So we are updating that. I think there's going to be announcements probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We're going to build in a number of different case studies as well, so that if you are a developer, whether you're a Web3 dev or a Web2 dev, you can actually check out that documentation and just plug your product or service directly into the Carbonmark itself. And I think especially for groups that are looking for an easy sourcing solution, there's roughly 25 million tons that have been digitized and brought onto the blockchain. I think that'll be really helpful for folks that are trying to do that, as well as people that are looking for an automated or even a fractionalized retirement solution. So stay tuned. We're going to have some great case studies on that in the coming weeks.
Thanks so much for that. So there was a few more questions around just generally the credits themselves. I think there's one very specific question around the Hydro project and talking about how associated information could be found on projects, I think is the more generalized question. And also just generally speaking, kind of how quality is managed on the platform in terms of there's a lot of information going around at the moment around quality and carbon credits and their role. And I guess this is where the transparency aspect is so valuable and has the potential to really raise the bar. I just wanted to see if Drew, if you had anything to say on that, perhaps as well.
I mean, from the project page itself, you can actually access the Vera project page, I believe. So, of course, there's 25 million tons that are on the blockchain currently. They were all Vera certified projects. And as I alluded to earlier, there's an integration potential with Carbonmark where you can have, let's say, those additional certification systems or ratings or just like general project data actually streamed into the project pages themselves. So to give like a real clear example of that, I mean, there's a number of groups that are doing really interesting work measuring changes in biomass for nature-based projects, and in particular REDD+ projects, for example. And so that's data that you could use to augment the information on the project page. And that's something that we would hope, we could just offer merchants there directly. So if you list that project, that extra information will just auto-populate, or perhaps it'll be a choice as a merchant. If you'd like that additional information to be showcased, you could have it added to your listing page. And if anybody has any recommendations there, or if you're an organization that's working in that space, please reach out to me. I'd love to know about what you're working on and ways that we might be able to collaborate on that.
Yeah, I'll probably add that at least you could add the B0 ratings, which rates not all, but substantial part of the Vera projects. And also to mention that this Mangrove from Myanmar has the highest B0 ratings, AA, for the quality. So it's somehow it comes on top of the traditional just their documentation.
It's really helpful. Thank you. I think there were a couple of other questions around kind of the possibility. I think it's just an interesting discussion point as well. Like, how do merchants take advantage of automated offsetting solutions through Carbonmark? Like, what does this like add as to layer to the kind of stack and to access digital carbon? Is that sort of thing, Drew, you can comment on?
Yeah, I mean, where I think this is heading. So, talk about like the vision of where it's at. Would be, as a merchant, you could choose which partners that are providing automated offsetting solutions or auto sourcing from the marketplace can actually access your inventory, right? So it'd be a choice for the merchant. So right now, we do have some people building with the retirement aggregator already, which sort of underlies all this infrastructure, and they're just sourcing what's available on chain, right? Because it's public, what's in the liquidity pools and so on. But in the future, when you have these individual listings for projects, we'd imagine that's a choice that the merchants could have, whether they want to plug into some sort of automated offsetting solution in SAP, for example, and so on.
That's really helpful. So I think there was some more questions coming in around kind of additional information, meta information around credits. I think you guys alluded to that already. One of them was we'll be integrating any of the rating agencies' assessment of the projects, and also kind of what registries the projects kind of touch on and represent in the current pools. So yeah, maybe Drew or Liam, if you want to take that.
Liam, you want to jump in? Yeah.
Sorry.
Drew's hugging the mic. Yeah, go for it, Liam.
So I was just reading some of the questions. What was that one, Vishal?
I'm not sure how accurately restate it, but just in terms of the meta information that might become possible in terms of rating agencies and their assessment.
Oh, sure, yeah. I think,
and then the second aspect was also what sort of credits are represented within the pools at the moment, the 20 million carbon credits that were discussed.
Yeah, so I think with the rating agency, I think that ties into some of the points that I made in the demo around how we're looking to bring other types of, GIS related data to enrich, the ability to really understand the project, the project listing and the project, all the information around the project. So I think in terms of like becoming a data aggregator for these project objects, I suppose you could refer to them, I would see the rating agency aspect being a component of that as we try to figure out what type of data do we want to integrate in and enrich the project information page with. There'd be a list of things that we would look at for that, and if a rating agency data is something that can be sort of programmatically accessed and served into that page, then that's something that we should really consider, particularly if it's of value to buyers to know that information for sure. And then for the second point there, in terms of what types of projects, there's a number of different types of projects, from forestry projects, renewable energy, deforestation, afforestation. We have a number of different types of credits. We typically look at it from a technology perspective and from a forestry perspective as taking up the lion's share of what we have on chain.
Thanks for that. Some quite hypothetical questions here. I think there's a lot of questions about where the industry is going in terms of the digital carbon market, what impacts it will have. I think there are lots of different angles, I think, to where we could take the discussion forward. I think one of the, just as a bridge, I think it would be really interesting, Liam, as going on from that point, like, what do you really want to convey to people coming on to the Carbonmark marketplace, and how does it really differ from existing solutions out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing for us is the traceability back to the registries. When I'm talking to a lot of, retailers who are buying from carbon aggregators and things like that, what I'm learning is that a lot of the time there are, it's quite common to have derivative sort of retirement certificates that are batched into like a single retirement event on the registry. So then, of course, you need to rely on the carbon accounting system, or just, sorry, the business and accounting system of these aggregators who are kind of creating these derivative retirement certificates. So I think out of the box, a big benefit that we have is that we have this ability to do these fractionalized, to a certain extent, offsets, and you can trace it all the way back to the registry, as opposed to getting a third party sort of certification that's then linked through some sort of business accounting system to the actual registry retirement event. So that's something that I'm seeing where I think there's a clear differentiator for us, just based on how radically transparent the platform is. That's definitely the first thing that comes to mind. And then the second thing is the instant settlement component. I mean, even talking to a lot of carbon aggregators that are very, tech powered, settlement still isn't, is often quarterly. So for the different types of needs where there's more of a programmatic requirement and an instant settlement requirement, as we serve this out to different applications and use cases, that's just another area where I think that we really have a lot to differentiate. And, when you can combine those two together, I think that it's a really powerful offering, and it's just reaching the right channels, reaching the right clients, and presenting the value in the right way, fundamentally.
Fantastic. Really good answer. I think there was another question just about Circle and like what the role of Circle custody is in terms of access and use of the marketplace.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can take that. I mean, the biggest part of, and there's been a few questions around like custody and things like that. So I think the big thing in terms of abstracting away a lot of the like underlying infrastructure and serving it up in a way that's more accessible, more compliant, easier to understand, and easier to integrate with existing business use cases. The big sticking point is, outside of a lot of other things, obviously, is custody, because, to use the platform natively would require quote unquote self-custody. And that's typically something that organizations aren't familiar with. The technology maturity in that space isn't really there. And in terms of having a solution there, Circle represents a provider that handles that custody component. In the Web3 world, it's, you need the concept of a wallet is something that comes up. This, there's a lot about Web3 infrastructure and the Internet of Value and things like that scales much better than our existing financial infrastructure. And we're obviously putting the bet on that the carbon market is going to be an application for that scaling. But one area that Web3 doesn't scale in terms of enablement, onboarding, and understanding and comprehension for the existing business landscape is the idea of a wallet construct. So the reason that we're leaning on providers like Circle is because they bridge that gap between a business's understanding of a bank account, whether it be US dollars or euros, and they make that connection seamless. So the customer doesn't have to start thinking about what is a wallet, etc. They know that they have a Circle account. They understand what a corporate single sign-on is like if they are using Microsoft or something like that, or what have you. So they're going to be familiar with the experience of having a Circle sign-on to actually access and move their funds. So that's really the thinking and rationale behind using more institutional custody providers that make that onboarding both compliant, safe, and easy to understand for the end user.
That's really helpful. I'm really happy to have that point. No, I think it's amazing. There's technology and the integration there in terms of how easy it makes something as exciting as custodying these digital assets with all of these applications that they have as well. And for us in the carbon space, it's game changing. There was a really good question also earlier. I think I missed this. But in general, like any household names using our credits at the moment, I think this was a good question. I think maybe you could talk a little bit about some of the companies that have been using the credits up until now, and also, I guess, what the way forward is and where you'd like to see the credits taken up going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big push and really the impetus to create a more accessible access to digital carbon was in the want for us for this to be applicable and useful for businesses that have their own environmental strategies. So, I mean, household names, like obviously Polygon's probably the largest in volume. And I think that's just a great household name in the sense that they've reached out and touched so many other traditional businesses as well, in a lot of their corporate partnerships. And, you know, it's just the impact that we've created from offsetting the Polygon network has been big, you know, and it's allowed a lot of the enterprise clients that were originally resisting going to blockchain based on their understandings of its, you know, position with environmental impact, and misunderstandings of that, you know, that enabled them to have partnerships with a number of firms like Adidas, Reddit, and Facebook, and a number of others. So I think that one really rings out if we want to talk about household names and bringing that, making that real. But I mean, there's also a lot of small, medium enterprises as well. I mean, one I'm really excited about is a jet chartering organization called Flyair, who have developed a way of integrating with us to offset their charter flights that they offer for their clients as well, and doing that in a really seamless way. You know, we've got case studies in financial services as well, with the Liechtenstein Bankers Association, and I mean, actually today, an organization in logistics just offset another 1,000 tons of emissions with us, which I think is really exciting as well. So yeah, definitely in the sort of the big end of town, we've got some interesting case studies there where we've touched a number of household names, and I'd encourage you to look at some of the partnerships that Polygon has had in NFTs, and how much their environmental messaging was key to them actually securing those deals. So that's from the household name, but small, medium business, you know, being able to just come and access credits is another area that I'm seeing uptake as well. And that I'm really the most excited about driving is that real world uptake. So I hope that answers the question.
That's really helpful. Thanks. So, I mean, I've also got my Carbonmark KlimaDAO hat on here as well. So I would say it's just really exciting from a sustainability standpoint to see, you know, projects which to be part of a project which actually has that potential to connect and bring on chain this digital carbon to such a wide audience. And this Polygon connection is very exciting. I'm really happy you mentioned that. I think there's some interesting questions about, you know, how Web2 companies can use Carbonmark and the carbon credits. I think this is kind of one of the main benefits of Carbonmark, which is, you know, being able to open up to these Web2 use cases, but also to open up this huge amount of supply. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of answering the question as I'm seeing it here. I think we're getting up to 50 minutes here. I just wondered if anyone has maybe we could go around with some closing comments for everyone. I'm not seeing many more questions coming in. There's one more. How can users confirm to end customers that tech-savvy credits have been retired? I think this was covered earlier on kind of getting to that transparency and seeing the certificate in the back end. But maybe we could do some closing statements for everyone. Do you want to go first, Sergey?
Well, I mean, again, so really excited to be here today, and congrats guys for building. Like we need to build, like, you know, brick by brick the new infrastructure, and so let's continue to do this together. Thanks.
Already.
I leave it good for you.
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah, I mean, my closing thing is just really excited about this first release and how it exists in its current form and how accessible it is and how much we've been able to abstract things. But at the same time, you know, if you get on carbonmark.com and you have a play around and you have any questions, or if you get stuck anywhere and you want to, you know, understand things in more depth, or you have an opportunity to integrate, or what you want to learn more about anything really, you know, I just encourage you to reach out, send me an email, or drop me a message on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to help and learn what your use case is, or if I can be of any value to you.
Yeah, before Drew jumps in, like we have got our email addresses up here, front and center. So definitely note them down. If you've got anything in terms of wanting to use the credits on Carbonmark business needs, Liam's your man. He's the head of solutions at Carbonmark. And with that, yeah, I'll pass it back to Andrew.
Thanks, Vishal. I just want to say thanks to everyone who attended this. I'm seeing some familiar names in the attendees list for people that I met last week at the European Climate Summit. Got to get a lot of great feedback. You know, I showcased Carbonmark to a number of project developers there and traders, and it's very helpful. So again, you know, we have our contact information here. Please reach out to us. KlimaDAO itself is really, in many ways, like a giant, you know, open source project. It's a DAO. We've had hundreds of contributors over the last year and a half that have helped contribute to the project and build things. And we work with a lot of different partners that are leveraging DeFi tooling. And so, you know, it's with the input of many people in the industry that we're able to do what we do. So, yeah, hoping to get more VCM folks involved in that. And, you know, the other thing I would say real quick is just that our webinars are available on the YouTube page. So I know there's a number of questions that popped up, and I'm still seeing like one or two that just came in the last minute on that. This webinar itself is recorded, so it will be available there as well in case you missed the beginning of it, and then you can check out the previous webinars as well, which provide a lot of technical background as well on blockchain technology and why we're utilizing that to build the products and services that we are. So with that, I'll leave it to you, Vishal, to close things up.
Thanks so much. Yeah, no, I'll just reiterate that point. So at the end of last year, we put out a report on the digital carbon market and how we see it emerging. And over the course of the first quarter of this year, we put out a couple of webinars talking about what digital carbon is, how we're leveraging blockchain, public blockchains, to really increase transparency and access to the voluntary carbon market for a whole number of new stakeholders. And with this release of Carbonmark, it's really a stepping stone to the next phase of what people can do in this space. So it's been really fun bringing these webinars to such a interested and engaged audience, and just keep us in the loop with what you want from us. I'm trying to facilitate the wider dialogue there as head of customer engagement. And Andrew's really strongly trying to interface with how we can really hit leverage points with the voluntary carbon market and really enable these deep solutions, which we all want to see happen, especially with the urgency around the climate emergency as well. There was a couple of small questions here and there just that might not have fully got covered. But like hopefully I can cover them in the subsequent email as well. But with that, I'd like to probably close the session and say thank you everyone for attending. We had, I think, about 100 plus attendees at the peak. So definitely tell your friends about Carbonmark, tell your colleagues, come try out the website and give us feedback on how it's working for you. And with that, say thanks very much and goodbye.